Okay, and now we go to the second homage to a very important, one of the most important architectural forces during the Renaissance, the one who was considered the first architect, and I will explain why. And that is Leon Battista Alberti, who died on April 25th, and today is April 25th. So Leon Battista Alberti, 1404-1472. Leon Battista Alberti was an Italian Renaissance humanist, author, artist, architect, poet, priest, linguist, philosopher, and cryptographer. He epitomized the Renaissance man. Indeed, he did. Although he's often characterized exclusively as an architect, as James Beck has observed, to single out one of Leon Battista's fields over others as somehow functionally independent and self-sufficient is of no help at all to any effort to characterize Alberti's extensive explorations in the fine arts. Although Alberti is known mostly for being an artist, he was also a mathematician of many sorts and made great advances to this field during the 15th century. His two most important buildings are the churches of San Sebastiano, 1460, and Sant'Andrea, both in Mantua, and we are going to see them. This was the man, this formidable creator, who announced the Renaissance in very convincing ways, and who epitomized indeed the formidable creative impetus of those giants of human spirit: Alberti, Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo, Brunelleschi, and so on. Facade of Santa Maria Novella. I will show another presentation with my own photographs with his works in Florence and Mantua. But now this is just an aide-memoir of his most important buildings, perhaps his only buildings. The facade of Santa Maria Novella in Florence, he just did the facade of the building is right near the train station. We are going to see it in detail further on. A beautiful Renaissance facade showing the complexity, the sensitivity, the sensibilities of Leon Battista Alberti. Great work. And again, those who doubt the value of ornament should think twice, because most major works in architecture cannot distance themselves from ornament. And in this case, it is obvious. I mean, you know, imagine this without the ornament. It's impossible, you know, and he created, he found joy, he found pleasure in inventing formally all these ornaments, which belong intrinsically, intimately to the elevation of this great church facade, Santa Maria Novella in Florence. This in itself is a creation, you know, just what happens here in the center, you know, this circle. And everything else, and they connect, they are all celebrating creativity and beauty. So this is in Florence, Santa Maria Novella, the main, the elevation of this church. Now Palazzo Ruchelai from 1446, 1440, I don't know what that's 5 is there, it shouldn't be after 6 anyway. It's a palace. He also, from what I read, he only worked on the elevation here and not on the whole building. This is also in Florence. So again, we are talking about Leon Battista Alberti. We had seen Santa Maria del Fiore. We are seeing now Santa Maria Novella, sorry. We are seeing now Palazzo Ruchelai. There is also a chapel across the street from this, and we are going to see it also in Florence. Now, the main elevation is by Alberti, but you see the side elevation has no architectural features really. It was left, as being a side elevation. What can we say? This happens often, you run out of funds and, it's not so important perhaps because it's not seen. The egocentrism of the main elevations is well known. So this is Palazzo Ruchelai in Florence, and we'll see also the Ruchelai Palace. And there is also the tomb of the, I don't know if the Ruchelai family or the specific Ruchelai, that these three buildings actually were dedicated to. Here again, we see the importance of ornament. Because obviously these are not, structural. They are here to celebrate the culmination of the column. That's all. Here is the chapel, the Ruchelai Chapel. Now it's some kind of when I visited, there was a store for I don't know, sneakers, sports shoes. We are going to look further to these buildings in the second presentation. Interesting what is happening here. I don't know, the building, I don't know if it was, the elevation was done intentionally like this, eroded on the edge, or in time this building was built and then some things had been, damaged. It's rather strange, but when you see this, you understand it's mainly the skin and elevation. This is the chapel. I don't know what that iceberg is. When I was there, it was something else. Now I still see here, it's a fashion store. I seem to see clothing and whatever. But in Alberti's time, there was no glass here, obviously. So this was like a loggia, actually. Not a chapel, a loggia. I like, again, these graphic interventions on the facade of the building. And they are mysterious in a way. And what is their function? What do they say? What is the raison d'etre? What is the narrative? Leon Battista Alberti, Florence. Now, Capella Ruchelai, there is a Capella Ruchelai. Sorry, what we looked at before was the loggia that became a store lately, but the Capella Ruchelai is where someone from the family or a certain Ruchelai is buried, is here, is this. The church was not built by Alberti, so this San Pancrazio was not built by him. He just built the chapel where the sepulchre is. And by now we know a little bit about Alberti. When we look at this, it does look like Alberti's sensitivity. He was a very cultured man, a man of letters, a man of many hats, so to speak. And the complexity of his talents and his spirit are shown in his architectural work as well. He even wrote literature, fantastic literature, a very, very interesting man, Alberti. And the reason he's considered the first architect is because until him, we had, for example, Brunelleschi, but Brunelleschi was still a man of the building site. He was not working at the drafting board distant from the building site. He was on the building site. That's why when I visited San Lorenzo in Florence, a PhD in philosophy, a young man, very kind and cultured, told me Alberti was the first architect and Brunelleschi was the last carpenter, because it was the transition between the medieval time to the Renaissance. And Brunelleschi, yes, he announced the Renaissance, but he still belonged in a way to the, to those guilds of craftsmen that characterized the Middle Ages. With Alberti, we have a different kind of architect. In a way, the first architect as we know him or her today, sitting at a drafting board or sitting in front of a computer or laptop, distant from the building site and working on a project. He was an intellectual, but his intellect was vast enough to not arrive at, sterility. And anyway, it's interesting to compare Alberti with Brunelleschi, who preceded him in time a little bit. So we are looking at Leon Battista Alberti, the Ruchelai Chapel in Florence. Inside the church, which was not built by him. He only built this chapel. The Chiesa di San Pancrazio is the church where this chapel finds itself. But again, it was not built by Alberti, and I think now it's not a church any longer, it's some kind of a foundation or something. But the chapel by Alberti is inside, again, in Florence. And now we go to the second and last presentation of today, the third in a way. I mean the third, but the second, considering that I make two presentations on Alberti, is about Alberti seen by myself with pictures I took myself when I visited Florence and Mantua. But I will also show Tempio Malatestiano in Rimini, which I didn't visit, but I thought it's my duty to complete the portrait of Leon Battista Alberti with the important work he did in Rimini too. But we'll begin in Florence. Then we'll go to Mantua and then to Rimini. Again, these are pictures that I took when I visited some years ago Florence, and I am in the vicinity of Santa Maria Novella. We already saw the facade, and this also, I think he also worked on this enclosure. Here I photographed some shop windows which are right across the narrow corridor, the narrow street from the church. And you can even see here at the top the reflection of the church, of the walls of the church, or the enclosure of the building site, the site of the church. In the I was intrigued by the dialectics between fashion, modernity, and the reflection of the church or spirit. And this is the main facade, the western facade of the church, Santa Maria Novella, that was designed by Alberti, Leon Battista Alberti in Florence. The building is right across the street from the train station in Florence. So if you arrive in Florence by train or by plane, and from the airport you take a train and you arrive in this train station, and right across the street is this important work by Alberti. I mean, look just at this corner, the complexity of this corner. To me, I could write easily an essay just about what I see in this picture, because there are interesting things happening here. Usually the corner is the most assertive part of the building, but is also the most vulnerable. And he seems to say this because exactly at the corner, he in a way sabotages the so-called normalcy of the corner going like this. So he enters into the corner and diminishes its assertiveness. This is an interesting subject, and even Miss van der Rohe, the Seagram building, and usually the corner is indeed a critical moment, a critical part of any building. Of any building which takes itself seriously and aspires towards being architecture. I mean, just these small details of the facade of this church that Alberti designed inspire me. Yes, it's about beauty, it's about equilibrium, it's about balance, it's about harmony. Renaissance searched for this, for harmony. Now we saw already this facade, the Ruchelai building, and its facade, which was built by Alberti. We saw the loggia, which became a store lately. I like black and white pictures more than colored ones, and some of my better pictures are those in black and white, actually. Here again, I was intrigued by fashion because, yes, it's a different world. You know, we have the world of ephemerality, exemplified by fashion, and then we have the world of permanent values, in as much as we can say, permanent, because nothing is truly permanent. But, religion or spirit is supposed to address, the eternal, if possible. Fashion, on the other hand, is concerned with what is transitory, ephemeral, circumstantial, which passes away. And they complement each other. And I think Charles Baudelaire, the great French painter, was right when he said, art has two halves. One half speaks about the eternal, the immutable, the permanent, and the other half about the transitory, the ephemeral, the circumstantial. I would agree. Here you will see an interesting picture, which I was happy to make, with an egg sitting rather precariously on a head. It's not a real head, but the head of an artificial head, so to speak. You'll see it. Here it is. I don't know exactly what was meant for, what was meant to symbolize, but an intriguing image, I would say. Right next to the Palazzo Ruchelai by Alberti, a store, of course, or I think a store or half gallery or some sort. Art is always present in Florence continuously. So Santa Maria Novella, Florence, Leon Battista Alberti. '15th century. Again, discrete ornaments which animate the facade, which brings to the facade, the ornament brings to the facade, a softness of, here it is a solar clock. And I don't know if this was built by Alberti. The solar clock is also present. An angel holds the solar clock, at that most incredible cathedral from the Middle Ages, the Chartres Cathedral in France. And I would say the measurement of the passage of time, in this way seems to be a little bit to assert man beyond the limits of what the religion might be willing to ascribe to him. Anyway, Santa Maria Novella, Florence, Leon Battista Alberti. The vehicles had nothing to do with Leon Battista Alberti, but these are pictures I took. Now, I took the bus from not far away from Santa Maria Novella towards Mantua to see two important works by Alberti there. And this is a picture taken from the bus. And yes, the silhouette of Mantua is unreal. It's, you know, it's like in a science fiction movie. So Mantua is seen through the front glass of the bus. And here I am in front of you know, Sant'Andrea in Mantua, maybe the most important work by Alberti. Unfortunately, when I was there, as you can see, the elevation was receiving restoration, so I couldn't. But anyway, it can be found with countless pictures on the web. What disturbed me here is that the building by the Renaissance great architect Alberti enters rather violently in the older, you know, tower, a medieval tower here, and with any regard with you know, creating a space of transition. So you can see on the web what I mean better, because here, because of the scaffolding, you cannot see. But the purity of what I'm trying to say is the purity of the main elevation, the western elevation of this important church by Alberti, sacrifices the vicinity of this older tower, you know, less famous, but you know, just because it was older, and I think it would have deserved a little more respect. I am not, you know, in any way trying to diminish the greatness of Alberti. Quite the opposite. I am paying homage to him now, but sometimes I am puzzled by certain things. You see here, and if you remove the scaffolding, you see that the elevation of the building crashes into some windows here. I mean, it blocks them off. There is no, you know, delicate, you know, handling of the relationship between the older tower and the new building. The interior is admirable. I had to go twice because when I went first, it was some kind of a lunchtime and it was closed. This is just the space in front of the entrance doors. It was locked, but I came back and then I was able to enter the building. Alberti, Sant'Andrea in Mantua. '15th century. So more than 500 years old, this building. I always like scaffolding because they are expressions of, you know, the process of becoming. And I like them because of it. Now I am in front of the other building in Mantua, which is, I like it very much. It's smaller, but it has this classical, it's almost temple-like. And not so much the campanile, but you know, the main elevation of the building. I understood these two stairs had been added later. This is San Sebastiano, also in Mantua, by Leon Battista Alberti. Because I was unable to enter the Sant'Andrea, the large church, you know, I decided to visit this smaller work and then come back later and we are going to see the interior of Sant'Andrea as well. This was a poster in front of the church when I visited it of this famous contemporary Chinese, you know, enfant terrible artist, Ai Weiwei, an interesting artist and architect as well. This is the plan of the Tempio di San Sebastiano. So it's considered a temple, not a church. And I always like this ability or interest that Palladio had, not Palladio, and even with Palladio, because Palladio was interested in the the ancient architecture of the Roman Forum, and so there was a connection in the Renaissance between the pagan ancestry and the Christian ancestry. So even when they design churches, there is something, arriving during the Renaissance from the Roman, pagan culture and pagan religion. Not all the building has. I think there were various interventions, but this part belongs to him. Not so much I understood these two stairs. I think they were added later. But the classical, so to speak, facade of the church, of the temple, sorry, of San Sebastiano, it's Alberti, all right. I tried to photograph whatever I was able to do. I couldn't get in, but there was much to see nevertheless. Beauty is not hard to come across in Italy, wherever you go. Back to, no, not yet. I thought I came back to, I thought it was the space in front of the entrance in Sant'Andrea, but I was wrong. I used my camera in various modes because I had some time to kill, so to speak, and I was intrigued by this building. I also like the tectonics of, these bricks. So this is Tempio di San Sebastiano in Mantua by Alberti. Here we see I left San Sebastiano and I was moving back towards Sant'Andrea di Mantua. And here we are. Here is the elevation with the scaffolding. So I was moving in its direction. Getting closer and closer. There are other interesting architectures around it. It's not just, this is Sant'Andrea, this is the main facade of Sant'Andrea, but there are also here other interesting architectures that I know nothing about, like these, but they are not less impressive, I would say. Probably from the Middle Ages. But now we will enter Sant'Andrea in Mantua, and you will see photographs from there, a very impressive interior. Unfortunately, a little bit excessively adorned with decorations. I do advocate ornaments, but not decorations, and not as excessively as they are actually displayed in Sant'Andrea. But I don't think it was him who designed those, and they must have been later additions. But in the meantime, I love these graffitis, Ti amo, Diego. These were, these are graffitis on the panels protecting the building site, and they are signs of life. They are signs of love. They are signs of being young, maybe irresponsible. It's okay. It's okay, again, ti amo. Ti amo, because what would life be without love? Nothing. So from 2015, another ti amo. Okay, so this is the church, but also with housing around it. I took many pictures because I was fascinated by the hybridity of everything. And now, well, this is the interior. I got inside the in the large, very large church, Sant'Andrea, very impressive in terms of space and light and structure, less impressive, in my opinion, in terms of ornamentation, which seemed to be, to me, a little bit disturbing because of its excesses. It sweetened unnecessarily, I would say that. But if you do not see it, or if you don't pay much attention to it, it's very moving, the spatial and structural, architectonic, seriousness and force of this building. It's this that turns me off, but I'm sure these do not belong, they didn't belong to Alberti. They were additions later on. You see, it's just too much. It's too much, and rather heterogeneous ornamentations. Not, in my opinion, I could be wrong. This is what I feel and think. But the building is great. It's great, and it has all the characteristics of a very harmonious, impressive architectural mountain, I felt like saying, although it's not a mountain. But the ornaments, the decorations leave me cold, or worse, they make me a little bit worried. Yeah, I feel these were added. The magnificence of the architecture should have been spared of all these rather heterogeneous ornaments, which they don't show the same unity of spirit like the building. The building is formidable. Is truly one of the best, in my opinion, churches of the Renaissance. Leon Battista Alberti in Mantua. The first architect, who died on the 25th of April. And that's why we pay homage to him today. Now, we saw the ornaments of Alberti on the facade of Santa Maria Novella. Nothing of this sort. His ornaments were abstract. They were, they had a very different spirit. Now, these are decorations. They are not ornaments, as I would advocate them. But the building has the majesty of a great achievement. Now we arrive at the last building I show today, and the last building I show by Alberti. I didn't visit it. I took these pictures from the web, but I thought we should see it so we have a more complete image of this great Renaissance figure. Leon Battista Alberti is the Tempio Malatestiano in Rimini. Actually, the way I found the information is 1447 or 1453, but it cannot be. A building at that time was not built in 1 year. So I guess somewhere in between these 2 years, more than 550 years ago was built. And it is a tempio, it is temple-like. It's not finalized at the top. We are going to see a model, but I like very much, in a way, I like it even more incomplete like this. It's in a way it's more modern, but these fragments already make me, so to speak, take my hat off in front of the brilliance of Alberti. Simplicity in complexity, complexity in simplicity. And it is temple-like, it's the house of spirit. It's the house of spirit beyond cultural, beyond religious denominations. This is the plan and the longitudinal section. I have a few pictures from the inside as well, again, which I found on the web. I'm actually not so, I'm glad actually this Tempio was not finalized vertically, that this part actually was not built. I find it a little bit too exuberant, although I'm not against exuberance, but I don't think this facade, if it was completed, would have had the brilliance of the facade in Florence, of Santa Maria Novella. I love this picture. I mean, this picture, you know, in sepia, it shows I don't know, the beauty of an architecture that is animated by ideals. Also, it has a certain gravity. It's not a superficial building. Classicism as well. You know, it was a Renaissance. That's why when I look at this building, I cannot accept the decorations inside Sant'Andrea in Mantua. He uses a little bit, you know, like here, but in a very different way and discreet way. Now, there were interventions here too, I'm sure, in time. You know, we look at only at suggestions of what was then 550 years ago. So this is in Rimini, or Rimini. I don't know very well how to place the accent on this Italian word, this city in Italy, Tempio Malatestiano. And here is the model. I don't know if this model came to us. I don't think so. I think it's a more, you know, recent model based on the drawings that came down to us. I don't know what to say, you know, I like it more as it is now and not finalized without this, you know, rather inflamed top. But yes, I like it like this. But I'm a little bit surprised. I thought I had other pictures. So that was it today. Thank you for being here, and hello, Leon Battista Alberti.